banned during the Trump administration, questioning NATO, securing the border, and now discovering how many American citizens live in America. Can't do that, not allowed. A federal judge today ruled that the Trump administration is not allowed to ask on the 2020 census whether respondents are American citizens. That's one of many such lunatic court rulings in the past year restricting what the president was elected to do. Judges have also blocked the end of DACA. They've ordered the continuation of Obamacare's birth control mandate. And, of course, they blocked too many migrant deportations to count. On constitutional grounds were these decisions made? Not really. Basically just political. Robert Patillo is an attorney. He joins us tonight to talk about what happened today. Robert, thanks a lot for coming on. I appreciate it. So there are a lot of ways to approach this question of whether or not the census can count people who are not here legally, who are not citizens. But let me just remind you, the purpose of the census in the Constitution is to apportion congressional districts, okay? So here's why this is a really important question. We think there are about 22 million people illegally in our country, illegal aliens, 22 million. The average congressional district is about 700,000, 710,000. So that's the equivalent of over 30 congressional seats, okay? That makes a huge difference whether or not you count. I mean, it makes a difference potentially of who controls Congress, whether you count people who are not citizens in the congressional district. So why wouldn't you need to know?
Well, Tucker, 3 points on this. Okay. Point one, let's understand there's a statutory guideline. There's a law in place that the Commerce Department has to make this request 3 years prior to the census, and they missed that deadline. So just on a statutory ground, they missed the deadline. So, of course, the judge had to rule against them. Secondarily, they haven't asked this question on the census since the 1950s. Between 1820 and 1950, this question was on the census. It has not been there ever since. And the grounds that the government used to justify it was a Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act justification, which in no way, shape, or form passes any muster, because since the Voting Rights Act has been in place since 1965, the question has never, ever been asked. So if no president, no census since 1965 felt the need to use it, then clearly it's not dispositive of Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Thirdly, let's understand that when this question was asked, it was used in the 1940s to round up Japanese citizens and intern them in internment camps. So clearly that does not meet the standards of 2019 American society.
Okay.
So of course
let me just go through these one by one very, very quickly. So using the Voting Rights Act as an argument against this sounds dumb to me. I agree. And there's no excuse for missing any kind of deadline. That sounds flaky. So I think that's right. You're right. But it elides the actual debate, which is, do we have a right to know who's in our country? And Democrats are arguing we don't. We don't actually have a right. As to what Franklin Roosevelt did to the Japanese, it's terrible. I would never defend that. Democrats should be ashamed of that. And I hope they are. The question, again, is, do we as a country have a right to know who's in our country? We don't even know how many illegal aliens we have. Why shouldn't we know, for the purposes of apportioning congressional districts, whether they're citizens or not? Like, that's a key question, and it's a sincere one to you.
Well, Tucker, what you have to understand is there's another mechanism for exactly that. It's the ACS, there's an annual census study sent to 1 in 30 households, which determines the composition of the country. That's not included in the census questions. That's how we know that there are 22 million illegal immigrants in the country right now. The reason that this is significant is we need to have an accurate count of individuals, of human beings, of live bodies in this country and households in every district, because that's how schools are apportioned. That's how emergency funds, that's how officers are apportioned. And we have individuals who are afraid to come forward, afraid to participate in the census, afraid to talk about those things, then they're not going to come forward.
Look, there's no evidence of that. That's just a talking point. I mean, we don't know.
No, that's not a talking point. Every independent organization said that.
First of all, there are no independent organizations. No one has produced those data. That's not a knowable thing. We don't know how many people are here illegally, so by definition, we can't know how many were too afraid to announce their presence. So actually, like, the question only is, should we try to know whether American citizens are being counted in congressional districts, and they're not. So why shouldn't we?
Well, what we need to be doing is understand that in the upcoming census, we have a $12 billion current budget to conduct that census. Wilbur Ross has already said they need $2 billion more dollars. Any roadblocks that are put in place that make it more difficult to have people respond to those census questions, the more roadblocks that are put in place to scare people away from actually participating and answering the government agent who's at your door asking you about your family, is just going to run up those costs, which is going to decrease the accuracy of that census.
Then why should we ask about race? Since the census, as you pointed out, was used by the Roosevelt administration to imprison Japanese people, why should we be asking about race? Doesn't that scare people?
Yeah, I think that's an absolutely, completely accurate argument. I think that's an antiquated way of measuring people. We have so many people in this country now who are biracial, who are from other countries. We need to reevaluate these things, but you can't do it when you miss deadlines.
Okay, well, I agree with you on that. And I definitely agree with you on the race question. Good for you, Robert. Great to talk to you. Thank you. Well, the list of Democrats